Here we're going to install the bearing for the pulley we have removed with the new one, and this one here is for the air conditioner serpentine belt, and we're going to install this pulley into here because I serviced this pulley about a year ago, and you could go to this video right here to see how to service this pulley, and it's in great condition still. But this one, when heat gets to it, it start make noise. So we're going to replace this one in here. But first, I'm going to use these two pieces of wood to support my bearing on. Right? And I'm going to drive the bearing out of the pulley. And I'm going to use this tool. It's a socket. I'll put it right in the middle and drive the bearing out of the pulley. Let's just remove the socket and get some lube in there to help drive the bearing out of the pulley. So we could see the bearing is already coming out of the pulley. And there goes our bearing. There goes our pulley removed. Now I'm using one hand, so you're going to do a lot better than I will with both hands. Now we must clean up in here, get all the oil and everything out of there. What this paint is going to do, it's going to help us seal the outer race of the bearing to the pulley. Now we want to put our two blocks of wood together, or we could just put the pulley flat on the ground. But I like to work with the wood. And when we look at the pulley, this edge right here is a little forward when compared to the pulley outside itself. You can see that. So we want to make sure when we drive the pulley, we have some form of, when we drive the bearing, we have some form of average. Now I'm going to place the socket on the outer race of the bearing. When we use the hammer force to drive this bearing in, it will not have any effect on the balls and the inner race. You see, if we were to use a flat stock and place it on top of this bearing, when we hit it with the hammer, it will disturb the inner race while support on the outer race. This disturbing the inside race will cause deflection and deformation of the ball inside the bearing. So we want to make sure we use one of our socket with a nice edge that will seat itself on the outer race. So this is much easier if you had a press, but since we don't have a press, we have to use this method. So if I was doing this with both hands, with 2 to 3 smack, this bearing would be in the pulley. So let's take a look at our bearing, and that's what we want. We want it to be flush with this inner circle. And we also want to make sure we check it for smoothness, which it should retain as long as you don't disturb the inner race during installation. Let's drive the bearing out of this pulley which we're going to use this one that we took out of here. We're going to put it in here. So we're going to use the same socket, because remember the pulley is the same side for the air condition and power steering. And there you go. With one shot the bearing came out. We're going to replace our socket, clean up this, make sure we get some paint in there. And we're going to take this bearing and we're going to replace it in here. So here's the trick. You need both hands to do this job, because you need one hand to really balance this socket and you need another hand to tap the socket with. You just can't do it by one hand the way I'm doing it. So first we're going to hold the socket and then we're going to tap it with the hammer. This is what we want. You see our bearing is flush with the edge in here. Then we want to make sure our bearing maintain a smooth revolution or rotation. And this has completed our bearing installation for the air conditioning pulley and the power steering. This is a pulley I bought to replace this one. But you see, when you're replacing a pulley, you must also look at the offset of the bearing. The offset is how far is the bearing seated inside of the pulley. And from the look of these two bearing, these two pulley, the offset is not the same. See the back? Completely different offset. Right? So I can't use this. I can't even use the bearing. But we have provided a solution for the pulley by replacing just the bearing instead of trying to replace the whole pulley with the bearing. So even though this pulley has a brand new bearing, we can still go ahead and pop the side seals out and add additional lube into the ball bearing and its cage and replace the seal. This will basically give the bearing a longer life and more performance. See, when the manufacturer provides you with a bearing, they really don't give you much lube inside the bearing, because they don't want that bearing to last forever. They want you to keep buying bearing or pulley. So you could go to this video right here and see how to service the bearing. And if you have a good bearing on your vehicle, it'll be a good idea to service the bearing before replacing it.